Welcome. So we're live now?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll continue on a little bit. We've been talking without the video, but we'll continue on a little bit. Again, this is basically learning about ourselves, learning about our mind, learning about our thoughts, learning about our feelings. It's a long journey, in a sense. Something where it becomes necessary. Why we use meditation. We use meditation in order to sit and be with ourselves. That sounds like, oh, that should be very easy. Not so easy. It's not that easy. Even when we walk and we get onto an elevator, sometimes we're not comfortable with ourselves. So other people there, we don't know what to do. We have to pick up our phone. We have to look at something around. So on this journey, we need to become comfortable, with ourselves, within ourselves. So the sitting practice is the practice that allows us to begin to be friends with ourselves is something that's used a lot, but is very much a true statement. We need to be able to sit quiet and not have to necessarily keep on putting something else on, putting on the TV, putting on a radio. Be able to sit with ourselves. Obviously, this is more difficult today. We have a world that's far more complex with lights coming at us, neon lights and flashing by this and do that. And so it's continuously taking us outside of ourselves. What we want specifically in the Buddhist journey, it's the inward journey. It's looking within, going to inner space, learning about ourselves, learning about our thoughts, learning about what we call mind, learning about what our energy is. This allows some amount of awakening about ourselves. Otherwise, what we end up finding is that we're completely under the control of the outside world. As we've spoke before, this is the method that we've mainly been taught. So if our teachers were our parents or at school, they might teach us, again, to draw a picture of what we want. So we're going to learn, you're going to become educated, we're going to be able to get a particular job, and we're going to be able to go out and accumulate whatever the houses might be, whatever the cars might be that we think are the things that are going to make us happy. Those are the things that are going to bring back ultimate happiness, not temporal happiness. Not if we approach those objects with a realistic understanding, as Buddha taught, all things are changeable, all things are impermanent. And so if we can learn to appreciate the moment by moment, the momentariness of dealing with our situations, but what we want to do is we want to grasp on, we want to hold on. But when we watch what is our mind, what is our thoughts, it's this stream of consciousness. Can we grab out at the water of a stream? Maybe we get a little water left there, but we can't grasp. It's continuous change, continuous movement going on. Moment by moment, life is changing. If we try to hold on to those, then it doesn't work. And what happens is we have dissatisfaction. So as we've talked about before, the sufferings that are the truth are created by our mind. Now, obviously, as we spoke before, suffering of suffering, which we all recognize, a broken leg or a disease or whatever it might be, those are easily recognizable. And, we try to avoid those, but sometimes you can't even, avoid those. The suffering of change, the second, part of the truth of suffering, which is how all things by nature are going to change. They're not going to stay there. If they stayed there permanently, this would be a good method, and Western way of living would be perfect. It would be right. We could, we could do like Buddha. We create ourselves inside that palace where we never see any darkness. We don't see anything dying. We don't see any sickness. We don't see anything going wrong. We could try to create that environment. I don't think Bill Gates could create that environment. So no matter how much money, no matter what it is, we take with us our baggage until we learn to go beyond that baggage. That's why Buddha would teach basically, here is the truth of suffering, and then here's the truth of the cause of suffering. What's causing that suffering? The cause of that suffering is our foggy, deluded mind that sees things not as they actually are, even on a relative level. Forget the absolute level right now. Just on the relative level, it doesn't see them as they are. As an example, if we drive down the street and because it's so hot out, we end up seeing a mirage and we see water there, and we believe that water to be true, we might veer the car off and end up in a ditch. When it was just an illusion created by the elements at that particular time. So when we look at things now, we see them through these glasses that are conditioned. We've conditioned basically our mind. Our meditation is to start to let us go beyond our conditioning, go beyond our self-made limitations. Everything we grasp after is not desirable to everybody else. Why? Because it has no inherent likeness in itself. It has nothing there. We need to make contact with it and have the seed of that's what I want. So this is the karma that's created by us. This is what the samsara is within our mind. We create this, push and pull. We're either grasping after something or rejecting something else. Maybe we're neutral at some time. We don't know, why, but there's not a clarity. We don't see the world around us as it is. And why don't we see it that way? We don't want to see it that way. We don't want to see it that way. To see it that way means we have to slow down. We have to be in that moment. But we've trained ourselves to be moving at supersonic speeds. Just move, as fast as possible. Why is that? That's, as we talked about before, because of the third of the sufferings, that pervasive type of suffering or pervasive dissatisfaction. What's that pervasive dissatisfaction that's going on within us? It knows there's some spark of intelligence in there that knows something's not right. Because it knows something's not right, that's why at certain points we say, this is it, we have to look something more. That's what sparked Buddha, that spark of inquisitiveness, that wisdom that pops up that said, what's going on in here? Only seeing, new flowers, none of them cut, only having good food, seeing nothing going on. Something just doesn't feel right. Because it doesn't feel right, then you begin to say, isn't there something more? Okay. But the problem with that bit of inquisitiveness, it's kind of like in some ways, it's almost like what would the word be? An irritant. It's a wisdom, but it's an irritant because it's not letting us be that happy. It's not letting us enjoy the things. So then we need to get away from that. So to get away from it, we'll go on our vacation, and that's where the vacation is fantastic. It's looking good, but what happens? As we talked before, what happens? We're getting closer to the end of the vacation. So now it leaves that little, all of a sudden that irritant's popping up again. Ha ha ha, I told you this wasn't ultimate happiness. I told you this one. If you just enjoyed it while you're there, enjoy the moment and not worry about when you're leaving and enjoy it from beginning to end, you'll be fine. But our mind will not do that. Our mind is moving fast. And the problem now is, it's now moved into this area of just being a pervasive suffering that was going to arise to the changeable suffering. It's changing pleasurable form of life into kind of a painful situation, into an uncomfortable situation. And then it's already on the road to becoming suffering of suffering. Because now I'm really becoming upset because I'm starting to worry about, what do I have to do when I get back? What do I have to do with work? What do I have to do there? So again, we need to do something. We have to get away from that. And then, okay, maybe we put some music on. Maybe we put the television on. Maybe we put a movie on. But this process keeps recycling itself. It's never getting us anyplace. So especially in the Tibetan tradition, they very much, one of the basis they understand is that they call this precious human existence, this precious human rebirth. Why is it precious? Because it's precious on many levels. It's precious because we have certain freedoms. If we were born in some countries right now, we'd have no freedom to read the books that we want to read to say, hey, there might be a path out of this uncomfortableness. But we look and we appreciate that we have all these freedoms and have not only freedoms, but then we're lucky enough to come in contact with, certain people that are very wise and can teach us things and can allow us to move beyond, because we finally said, okay, I've done this whole process of just doing this, collecting these things and trying to go to these places. But I don't understand, what am I here for? So why am I alive? I'm alive, in a sense, to align ourselves with our real nature, with our Buddha nature, with our enlightened nature, with our awakened nature. That's what's sitting in there. That's why we're always moving against the stream, and it's painful because instead of moving toward that, which is getting us to other levels of happiness, other levels of joy that actually exist, they actually exist. This other stuff it's an illusion. But if we don't appreciate it, and we don't use this, precious life to be able to do that, then we're sitting here. Also, the precious life, this birth that we've taken now, in the Tibetan, especially in the tantric system, allows us to be able to learn to use different types of This body is one that's made for working with our psychic body, with our channels, with our energy. As I've said before, we're made up of our thoughts, our awareness, our mind. We're also made up of our energy, and we're made up of our body. And there's ways of using that toward moving quickly, to awakening our mind. So I'll tell a particular example, but I'll use it more in modern times. So this is like if I was a beggar, not only a beggar, but a blind beggar that had no money, didn't enjoy things, and was going through the garbage. And in the garbage is the winning lottery ticket of $100 million, of $200 million, okay? That's what this human body is much greater than that. Can you imagine that myself going through, or in ancient times going through and finding a rock and finding out it turned out to be gold or a diamond or something? All of a sudden your relative existence changes. All of a sudden we think we become so happy because we won the lottery. Well, we've won the lottery. That's what the basis of this is, this human type of life we have now. We have the ability to find the answers within ourselves, to find ultimate type of happiness, ultimate joy, basically. We have the ability to align ourselves with our true nature, okay? So, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So, in a sense, sometimes the way things are actually come about in very interesting ways, where we actually get a glimpse. We go into nature and we take a walk in nature. We might be by the beach, we might be in the mountains. And because it hooks up with our internal nature, the elements internally, all of a sudden we feel some kind of freshness. No need to be doing something else, but just enjoying where I'm at, at that particular moment. It gives us some little glimpse. But the trick is that that's always within us, with each moment. So whatever we're doing, we can slow down enough to enjoy it. We can recognize the food and actually see it coming to our mouth and actually feel it and taste it and receive the nutritional value, rather than taking it like my dog takes it and it's down. So that's why it's important to just slow down. And so there's practices, of the mindfulness. And it's not that doing dishes is better than or worse than sitting and meditating, because you meditate while you're doing the dishes. You do the dishes. You sit there and you're with that. Slow yourself down for a moment and not be thinking about, I got to do the dishes and then I got to go get that. Be right there. Be in that time period right there. It's precious. The moment is precious, and it's enriching, and it's healing. Each of those moments for whatever it is we're doing. So when Buddha taught, basically, the suffering, as we've talked about before, it's the psychological thing. We don't know that there's, or we actually really know, but on the intellectual level, somewhere up on top, somewhere in our head, we don't know. So we think, I've got to keep this rapid pace, this moving, okay? It's kind of like why I like driving places rather than taking an airplane. An airplane, I go from here to California, and that's it. I get on and get off, and you're rushing, you're worrying about everything going on, and going through all these things. But you drive, and you actually have a chance to take a look, and you see the mountains, and you see, the valleys and whatever might be there along that trip, and you're able to appreciate that time, appreciate that moment. we need, to be able to slow ourselves down and be able to do this. So by understanding, as Buddha taught, the truth of suffering is called the truth of suffering because it's the truth. It's the truth. This is not a fantasy. He didn't make it up. He discovered, because he sat with himself for all that time underneath the tree, the Bodhi tree, to become enlightened. He became enlightened because he saw this is the truth. And everything tried to shake him off that path. But his resolve was strong, and that allowed him to be able to move on. So in the teachings, a lot of times there's a thing called the 3 principles of the path, which kind of translated would be, entering renunciation, bodhicitta, which is the enlightened thought, and understanding the wisdom of emptiness. Renunciation doesn't have to be a renunciation where it says, "Oh my God, I got to not have this. I renounce all this daily stuff." I mean, yeah, we can become a monk and do that, but it's not necessarily to do that. Renunciation is also a thing of realizing, of a resolve, in a sense, that this is not that important. It's kind of like we're like we talked about in the symbolism of the pig, which symbolizes ignorance. That there could be this gourmet meal sitting over here, but it's kind of foggy and closed-minded, and it only sees what's in front of us. So what happens is that these other things which begin to, which attracted us before, but they do more than attract. I think it's more like magnetize. They magnetize us to go after them, begin to lose its power because it doesn't have any real power, but it begins to lose it because that wisdom inside is beginning to spark. It's beginning to awaken and saying, something that's not quite so important. And so we begin to see what's, what things are and what's their real value and how are they existing. And because of that, Buddha also taught, what's causing it, what's causing suffering, our pain, our discomfort. It's the 3 states of mind, which is the anger, hatred, the greed and desire, and the ignorance. Okay, those 3 are what are controlling us. We're in jail. You mentioned before jail. We're in jail. We're in that jail right now. It's got us locked up, basically. We are controlled by those. And what do? They create thoughts of hatred and anger, thoughts of desire, thoughts of fogginess, just dullness, just not knowing wrongly. Okay. They create actions. So when Buddha teaches karma, he taught, karma of our body, speech, and mind. So how does karma take place then? Then our action, because somebody's disturbing me or my world, which my world could be my family, could be my country, could just be me. I want to lash out. So that's where the teaching on karma is teaching, to not harm others. And, or the speech might be to speak badly to them. So there's kind of like 10 negative karmas that are laid out. Why are they laid out? Because we're totally confused. We're pretty confused. I don't know what to do from moment to moment. So Buddha's teaching, develop kindness, develop good thoughts. Don't develop, don't follow bad thoughts. Don't say something to people. Don't deceive somebody, lie to them for my own benefit. How we're living. We don't do that. If you don't do that, and you say nice things to them, and you help people, and you give them things, these begin to create a different atmosphere, within our being. Okay, we're not allowing stuff to completely control us. But they're going to control us because they're so strong. They're going to control us. So we need to have that type of kindness to ourselves, understanding for ourselves, like we'd have for a child. If a child does something, we just say, okay, it's a child, it doesn't know it or under control, or somebody who's got maybe some problems or whatever. We need to have compassion for ourselves. We need to be able to feel the pain of ourselves. That gets us, which I'm not going to spend time on it now, but that's what moves us into the second of the principles of the path, which is the awakened mind, the enlightened mind. Because once we can begin to feel our own kind of suffering, pain, and the more or less frustration of these karmic chains, which keeps drawing us back in again. Oh my God, why did I say that again? Over and over and over again. Every time we do it, we imprint on our mind to do it again. And then we do it again, and then we do it again. So we have a conditioned state of being. But deep down, there is something that's not conditioned. There's a clarity of mind. There's that awakened mind, which is basically when you're in that particular state, it's bodhicitta, or the awakened mind, is natural because you feel everything else around you the same way as you feel yourself. You've now went off of just yourself. Okay, so at first you're just pretty much on yourself, which is okay. We need to feel ourselves. We need to feel our suffering and pain, or we can't feel the pain and suffering of extending that to the world beyond. Extending that to the world beyond is what allows our mind to now start creating great space, openness. Because now I have some understanding for why somebody else is doing something. They don't know. They don't know. They're controlled. The people we come in contact with, the world we live in today, needs compassion from us, needs understanding from us. If we enter that relationship from that openness, from that type of compassion, then we'll be able to deal with it in a far different way once we've progressed along the path, in a sense, to be doing that. Now, I remember, I would sit and, meditate on the suffering of living beings, for doing kind of bodhicitta meditation, bodhi, awakened mind, bodhi, awakened, citta, mind or thoughts. And putting myself in the place of all the, if you're living in India at that time, you've got, basically beggars going on for miles upon miles. They've got hundreds of them, with leprosy and things. Obviously you can't give to everyone, but you can, in your mind you can give to everyone. So if you learn to use your mind in a sense of offering the food you're eating, may this take away the hunger for those that are hungry, take away the something to drink for those that are thirsty. There's different ways of letting thoughts in your mind all of a sudden begin to open you up in a new world. But without understanding, having wisdom as well, which is the third of the principles of path, being able to understand the situations and things, we might be doing something wrong. Maybe we're giving money to somebody who's then buying some drugs, and it's not good for them at that time. So it's a nice thing we're giving, but we're not assessing the situation. So that third of the principles of the path, the wisdom needs to be developed. And that's talking about, not just ultimate wisdom, but even relative wisdom that understands I'm giving something to somebody and he's going to go buy a bomb and blow up a building or something. You know, if we don't know what we're doing, you know, there's not, you know, karma's basically starts with, has to start with our thought. I want to say something badly to this person. And then I say it. And then I'm happy about it. So we've had the intention, we've had the motivation to do it. We've done it. And then we're happy about it. Boy, I'm glad he deserved that. Okay? Now we've sealed it. Okay, so in the case of doing things incidentally, sometimes we have no motivation, so that's a lesser thing. But if the action itself is still negative, you know, it's going to have some consequences, has some negativity, unless we learn how to purify it. And for sure, we probably, if we know we've just done something like that, we probably are not happy saying, oh, that's okay, I'm happy I did that. That bug was in my way while I was driving or something, you know. All of a sudden, you know, there's still a little karmic energy and things there, but it's not the whole thing. And then of course, you know, our practices themselves have the ability to purify. So the beauty of karma is that it's not fate. It's not set in stone that it's going to happen. There were causes to create that karma. There's causes that can purify that karma. That's why we were talking a little bit off before about Milarepa. Milarepa created negativity that all of us can't do together in a number of lifetimes. But his teacher was skillful enough to teach him to purify that and become enlightened, become one of the greatest yogis in Tibet's history and things. So that's why what's ever taking place, every situation is workable. It's like clay, you know, we can move it around, we can mold it. It's not solid and fixed. We deal with the world right now as solid and fixed. When we're sitting with our meditation, as we did before, and I mentioned, leave the past. Don't, you know, go into the future. They might come up, so you just become aware of it. But by staying in that now, that even when you're sitting there and you're feeling something in your knees, and it's basically, you know, that you've already been told that's pain. You've created that's pain. Well, actually, that's not pain. That's energy. And that energy can be bliss. Okay? Why? Because that's just energy, and it's our conditioning that takes us to that. Also, while we learn to sit and slow down, we have a thought of pain. Well, just like the ones we want to grasp onto before, that thought is not there anymore. There's a new moment coming and another moment. So all of a sudden, when our perspective changes, we don't feed into this energy field. We're not even involved in the energy field because we're onto something else. But if it's into openness and clear awareness, we can then learn to deal with it. So the path in this particular thing is basically, we've been told, do these things and we're going to be happy, and okay, well, it didn't exactly work that way. Yeah, it's been kind of nice. I've had a nice house, a nice car, and nice family, and da-da-da. But that intelligence is there saying, oh my, something's not 100% still not right. Is there something more? Can there be something else more there? And, you know, that's the thing that when you basically are following, instead of following, what's been told to us, that this is the path to happiness, We can just understand this is the path to living. That's fine. I can live. That's good. I can live, have a nice thing, have nice food, have nice cars. But it's not the thing that's going to bring back. The thing that's going to bring back happiness is the cessation of suffering. And so on the one level, as I've said, we begin the path. The path is looking for what is the cessation, what is the cause of the cessation. Just that the cessation exists can be a happy thought. That in itself is like, oh my God, I didn't even know. Wow, this stuff can actually stop. The neurotic behavior, my energies, it can actually stop at some point. But it's not stopping, for us necessarily in one moment. We have that compassion. We have that feeling of softness to ourselves to understand. And so, at the beginning, we're looking to go beyond suffering, which is going beyond, the Sanskrit term is samsara. It was interesting. I was looking at pictures of, Kopan, where I lived, the monastery. And I lived in one of the things as a monk in one of them where it was called the Sangha house, because Sangha is basically the community, and then the bathroom was at the end, two bathrooms, two toilets. We called it Sam and Sarah. The Sam. Those two. Yeah, it was cute. So in any case, basically, if we want freedom from our prison, there is a path out, and we follow that. If we follow that path, there's a prescription. There's an actual GPS to it. Could tell us exactly which way to go, what turns, how to do it. That's what the entering the path is. So when we enter the path, we're looking at it to go beyond for ourselves. Once we begin to think, wait a minute, this is not so great because my husband, my wife, my daughter, my parents if they're still alive, my grandparents if they're still alive, my children, if they can't be happy, I can't really be totally happy. That's the awakened thought beginning to awaken. It's beginning to, wait a minute, it's not just about myself, but it's also about everyone else. And when it really begins to expand limitless, it goes beyond my house, my family, my relatives, the people I work with, the people I know. It goes beyond the country, goes beyond this, into this universe, the next universe. That it's a daunting type of situation that there's so much pain and suffering going on. There's a pandemic. There's a mental pandemic taking place that's locking in everybody. So one of the things that happens, where you start to develop, and you develop like in some of the bodhicitta meditations on love and compassion, is that once you start to see and you want to expand that, and you're almost having image of a family member, it's like if that family member was in a house that's burning, would I sit there and say, oh, that's not too good? Or would I want to say, I can't wait a second, I want to move in there and get them out as quickly as possible? That starts to become the energy, the bodhicitta drive, okay? That, in the case of Buddha, nothing more was going to hold him back anymore. Those other things that were coming at him, whether in his meditation, whether it was beautiful girls and food or things coming at him, that's nothing. Who cares? They're so small. They're renounced. They weren't renounced in the sense of getting them away, but they're meaningless. They're a tiny little dot. They're nothing. They're nothing. It's a natural renunciation. And the bodhicitta is a natural bodhicitta, because now our mind understands the interconnectedness of us and all other life that's going on us, and for that matter, even beyond sentient beings, the world we live in, the earth we live in, and how we treat it and what we do. This becomes a natural understanding of that. If we're driving in the car and we toss some garbage out the window, we maybe sit there and want to tell ourselves, oh, it doesn't really matter, who cares, and they have street cleaners. But something's in there telling you, that's not right. That's not it. That's not right. So the awakening, in a sense, of ourself is purpose of being here in this situation now. We've now found ourselves in a situation that allows us to be able to listen online to incredible wisdom out there. Not from me, I'm talking about from very, very developed, Tibetan lamas and other type of beings that are in touch with reality and understanding wisdom and sparking that within ourselves and showing us ways to be doing that. So I think, we'll leave it for that. That's a lot of stuff. My teacher, Lama Yeshe, was always very interesting in the sense that he was very much about practice. So whatever he taught, he taught us to begin to integrate it into ourselves, because the mental type of indigestion that can take place from just collecting a bunch of stuff is like you collect a lot of food to put in your fridge, and you don't have time to cook it and to eat it, and it goes bad. So little by little, we, part of our practice has to become to integrate it. We do our meditations, we sit, we begin to observe, we allow that awareness inside of ourselves to observe what's going on. Oh, that's telling you, that your knee kind of hurts. Get up and walk away. Who's doing that? There's some Mara in there, some something telling that to happen, or I need to go and I have to drive over to the hardware store or something. I've got to do this and I've got to do that. So there's stuff that's going on. But you learn to just sit with yourself, and before too long, all of that stuff, begins to weaken, soften, doesn't have the same control over you, which on a relative level. Sometimes you have somebody, a child, or you have somebody that you teach or whatever it might be, and the person is always crying wolf. So at first it kind of affects you quite a bit. After a while, there's kind of like an awareness that, something, that's the same game they always play. There's a lot of games going on within us. We have a lot of games that are going on, and the games come and go. And the beauty of the practices allow us to kind of start to gain control of our mind, or what we call mind, our awareness, our stream of consciousness. And once our stream of consciousness begins to relate with the world on a different level, then the world isn't the way we saw it, because it's not. Because we begin to realize that the seer and the seen are non-dual. It's within us. So maybe, as I said, it's a lot, but I can have a couple questions if you want. I think we have time, right? Yeah, a little time. And if not, we don't have to.
I have a question.
I don't know if I'll have an answer, but sure, go ahead.
It's kind of an interesting one. So for me, hanging out with guys, way easier than hanging out with girls. I'll just put it out there. And I love the women that I know, but they're just very strong, I don't know why it must be my inner self, but so I the last couple of weeks I've had 3 different encounters with very strong women, and a little strong, and so my ego got involved too, because I've been conditioned to fight for my stance,
Yeah.
in my family system, especially where we're pretty smart, but we're combative. Like when I get together with my family.
So your relative nature is one that's that's not passive to something, but
oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think prior to my family conditioning, I think I was a very gentle, sweet kid. But then I grew up with these lovely and wonderful teachers who are my brothers, who are we push each other a lot.
Yeah.
And in some sense, I like that. I teach my students to do that because I want them to have critical thinking. If they like something in music, I want them to sort of, they have so much identity in that person, or they have someone.
So you want their creativity to come out.
Well, what I want them to do, let's say they have a hero, like a rock star or
Yeah.
something, or a pop star. They have so much identity that they like that person, and they have so much emotional attachment to it, which is, of course, part of it. But I want them to cut through that and go a little deeper and say, okay, tell me specifically what you like about that person in a more objective sense. Like, you can't just say because I think they're cool, or because they stand for this or that. I mean, you can say that, but like tell me about their music, their art, not their personality, that you really like. And that has more validity. If you're going to talk about art, you have to talk about it in those ways. You can't just be like, in this sort of like, I think it's cool because, whatever. You have to be more clear about how you discuss things, or else you can't have a rational conversation with someone, basically. So that sometimes with these women I know who are, man, they're so strong. They could come at you very strong.
Yeah.
And I love them for that. And then sometimes I feel like it throws me for a couple of days, and I have to really like just separate. And then I say, maybe I shouldn't be hanging out at all with these women. I get into a dualistic stance.
Yeah.
And I can defend myself very strongly too. So if they start coming at me with things, I can counter it. But then I find that I'm also way too sensitive for that.
Yeah.
And it kind of jacks me up, to be honest. So then I think later, and I pull myself back, and I start to meditate on compassion, and then I start laughing. I say, "Oh man, we're all caught in this insanity."
Mm-hmm.
But they're like strong coffee, and certain people love strong coffee, right? Because that's the style that they like. Sometimes I want to be around a little more softer, compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, with my friends, we can just joke about it. We can like push each other and joke and be like, "Oh yeah, you're such a big guy, you got it all together," and then it breaks it. You laugh. Can't do that with women. It's like if you say something wrong, it's like they get very strong at you.
Yeah.
And they start pulling things about your being a man versus a woman or whatever, and it makes me crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, good luck with that.
Well, no, I mean, I think what you're doing is that you first of all have to, read this situation correctly and also read your situation. So there are times in life that we need to start like more on the lower levels of the path, which is more like the real renunciation, where I have to renounce a particular situation itself and not be around it because it controls me too much. Saying that, you might be in situations where you can't do that. So now here you are, you're in that situation. So, and if that takes place, then of course, there are some of the other levels where you begin to, let's say, move along instead of renouncing it, but you end up doing meditation on them with love and compassion. And so your mind begins to train, in a sense, to be ready for that situation, to be able to, like in the Tibetan Buddhist, that they teach with the awakening thoughts meditations, you begin to see all beings as your mother. And that's usually because for them, most people think that there's a special relationship with the mother. I also had a special relationship with my grandfather, so I could use that as well. And things doesn't matter, or just a father if you didn't have a mother, whatever it might be. The point is that when you see that whoever that object of love that and not with you, but you see them in some other situation, that they do things that you might even consider kind of embarrassing, and you wish they weren't doing it, but you have understanding for them. Somebody else who doesn't feel for them as that close person is like, oh my God, that's an obnoxious person, and this and that. So the point is that you begin to look for that key, in the sense of generating kind of the understanding and love and compassion for them, and so that when you come into dealing into that situation, into that energy, you might be able to have created a little space. And it might not happen right away, and it might not happen for years, but there is a possibility of, of being able to see deeply into them, and I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're a relative or something else. It might just be any woman or whoever, but you begin to see all of them, in a sense, because you've now expanded, you've gone beyond me and mine. Okay, the me and mine is the one that always, creates this. Okay, and then of course, once you move into other forms of practice, so you got, the Mahayana practice, and then, Sutrayana practice, Mahayana practice, also got a Vajrayana practice and things. And I think we were talking earlier about, viewing certain things. We don't know who's who. So I don't know, maybe, you may be able to then, and in any case, you begin to train to see women as dakinis, as the, female energy source, basically, a Buddha projecting. So we won't go into that so much now, but right. there are many different levels, to deal with it.
Sometimes they feel like fourth dan in Aikido, and I have like my white belt, and you think you're doing all right, and then you get around, and you're like, whoa, I've just gotten thrown. Times, and then I can see my own part of it. It takes me a while, my ego, when I'm meditating, I'm like, all right, you pushed on that. That was your ego. You antagonized that. In that sense, I do feel like essentially everyone who comes into your being is a great teacher.
Yeah.
But and maybe you are ready for all of it. But sometimes those.
No, but as I said, if you're not, and then you try to control, the environment. In this sense, I mean, I'm not telling you go up to the mountains or be in a monastery or something, but maybe you don't go around. Certain people are going to be there if it just throws you for a loop. I mean, there's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, listen, I just don't have it yet, and I've got a little more work to do before, but this is not a permanent thing. Maybe next week I can deal with it. Actually, you might find the space. So that's why I say, the whole path is becoming in touch with yourself, with who you are, where you are at a time. It's seeing your potential, but you're not Buddha yet. Okay. So we're going to have situations that are going to arise throughout the day. But the thing is that, we've also got to just let go of them after they happen. If we need to, if you want to say some mantras to purify something you did or said or whatever, but stuff's going to happen all the time. When you're meditating, it's almost incredible when you're in there, especially you start doing a lot of meditation, you begin to understand this onion. It's just like one layer, another layer, another layer, another layer. I think we talked about it one time at Lamas when we were sitting there. I don't know, but when there's a saying, that, when I'd be in Nepal and in India, and I take my clothes and start to wash them, I'm applying soap and water and squeezing and hitting them, and the dirt's coming out, and I keep squeezing, turning, more dirt's coming out. If you're not that smart, you think the fault of the dirt is the soap and water. Okay? You see what I'm saying? It's not the soap and the water. The dirt is there. You're just removing it, and there's more and more and more. As you begin to work with yourself and work on sensitive levels, there's also many layers that are there. And and basically, you're just working with them, and it's moving along, and it's a dance basically, and it's a long one, and that of course depends on our internal wisdom, how smart we are, and what we've learned, and what practices we have, and things. So, but know where you're at a particular time. Now, sometimes you're not going to know that somebody's going to be there. So then, of course, if you can kind of alert your mind a little bit, that's also a practice, mindfulness. The situation, what was that TV show? Will Smith, or what was the thing there with
Will Robinson.
Will Robinson. Will Robinson. You know, danger. Will okay, these things start going off. You got the red flags popping up there. Okay, what am I going to do? And so if you got the time before, the person might be 30 feet away. You might have some time to prepare. And maybe you begin to deal with it, and then all of a sudden, I got to go over here for a second. I got to go get a glass of water.
Right.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, so it's a lot. So.
The good news is that as you train, it's like putting drops of water in a bucket. It fills up. So you're making progress every time you train. It doesn't feel like it, but you're moving in that direction instead of not doing anything or doing the opposite, or going in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. But every little bit you do builds on itself, and it's a process.
Yeah, not in the same line, but we had
You're fighting with girls too?
a lot of we had a lot of friends.
He's not a fighter, he's a lover, this guy.
And recently a couple of friends are probably a little more aggressive in their conversation, and these are doctors and we know them for 40 years. It's kind of bothering me, and like I called you, I didn't answer the phone, like I've never been a person who would go into somebody's detailed life, we talk and say, I will listen and have that conversation. And for last couple of months, couple of these guys are just like constantly bothering me, in a sense, not bothering me. They're worried about me or whatever it is, but for me it's too much internal digging, for myself. Right? So I told my kids this, and they said, Dad, they're always like that. Mom used to shield you from those things. Now it's you. You have to manage.
Yeah.
And
So you were like little Siddhartha, that was being protected by the king, father, and the queen. Yeah, your mother was your wife was protecting you like that. So
at this age, I'm finding out that everybody has a couple of personalities, and you don't know which one you're dealing with at any given time.
Yeah, well,
it is difficult for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, as you get into, especially like into the path, the Bodhicitta path, it's also teaching what they call the 6 paramitas. And so, one of the paramitas means kind of like perfection. You can say 6 perfections. So one of the perfections, of course, is patience. So sometimes, you begin to, be kind of patient in situations that at times before you couldn't be patient with, and that's because your mind is opening, and you're beginning to let loose in this sense. If you've moved along the path there, you're beginning to let loose a little bit of the old self-cherishing attitude. And so, because if you're cherishing that person more than yourself, there's nothing to become impatient for. Whatever they're doing is kind of not one that's bothering you, in a sense. I mean, unless it's like super negative thing, obviously, Yeah, but yeah, there's, there is a developmental stages that, again, they are your teacher, and they are teaching you patience, and they can teach you compassion, and they can teach you, giving. Maybe you're giving in that situation. The perfection of giving is giving them whatever they need to hear, in a sense, for them to say the stuff they're saying. I don't know. Maybe it's not, because it might be bad stuff. I don't know, but.
Do you like humor?
Yeah, I'm a pretty balanced guy. I don't get too excited in a good news, and don't get down in a bad news.
Sometimes. So there was this one time I went to visit. You remember Joe Murphy?
Yeah.
Repco?
Yeah.
I went to visit him and Bill Sexton in New York. Walked into the office, and Murphy came right at me. So you're from FNCME, and you're here to tell me about some stupid product that's not. I mean, he went on for about 18 minutes. And at first, I was going to be like, kind of get back at him. But then I said, you know what? This is good. This is going to be material for a joke in the future, right? So I just let him give it to me. I'm like, oh, this is excellent. So now it turned into a game. And then ultimately, so I almost let him, he got tired, right, of talking. I said, are you done? He goes, yeah, I'm finished. I said, I'm not here to talk to you about any of those things. No? No, I'm here to talk to you about, I think it was like $15 million. And then I had his attention. But the thing of it is that I let him just make me kind of laugh inside, because it was, at first I wanted to punch his lights out. But then it was, wow, this is funny. This is great material.
Yeah, I think
Excellent, yeah.
you know, the thing is that when we begin to understand, every situation appears to be as it is, and then if we look closely, it's not. Okay, so it's workable. It's workable. So that's all we find. Yeah, we find, you know, we begin to find a way, and maybe we don't right away, and maybe what we think is working is not. But you know, but it's a process, and ultimately, it is workable. So that's the beauty of it. So.
But if you're curious, you'll stay engaged, and you won't run. If you're curious.
Yes.
Okay, well, anything else, or we'll just good for today?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste.